Welcome to She's a Full-On Monet, a digital lifestyle magazine for women. Every week, our editor-in-chief, Kelly Castillo, along with Megan Block and special guests, participate in a deep dive discussion about recent articles and topics we have covered. We invite you to become part of our community where everyone's welcome. You can totally sit with us.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back to She's a Full-On Monet, and I am your host, Kelly, and I'm here with Megan, as always.
Hello, Kelly.
And we are here today to talk about something I think that's super near and dear to both of our hearts and kind of ties into last week's empty nest syndrome topic. Today's topic is how to build healthy relationships with your kids that will last a lifetime. So I think that's something that, at least I know from my friends and family members, that's something that a lot of people really have issues with and struggle with as their kids become adults. They don't necessarily have the relationship that they had hoped for. And a lot of that might be distance, but I think some of it, you have to kind of lay the groundwork when they're little. Mm-hmm. So this topic is really for everyone, but I mean, I think it would be of most benefit to people whose kids are still in the home and on the smaller side.
Mm-hmm. I agree. Yeah, I'm excited. I think that this is something that, I mean, not to toot your horn or anything, but I think you're really great at this because you have a very close relationship with your kids that seems mutually respectful on both sides. I struggle growing up with having a really good relationship with my mom. It wasn't until I became an adult again that I had any sort of actual relationship with her. But growing up, we butted heads all the time and I never felt respected or this or that. So, we all are, projects of what we grew up in. Right. So I'm definitely not wanting to have the same relationship with my daughters that I had with my mom. And so it's something I'm excited to hear your perspective on it because my daughters are 9 and 4. And I feel like, this is the time where decisions are being made on my end and their end that can, turn into a great friendship, a great relationship, a great healthy relationship or distance. It's kind of at that age. 4th grade's weird. They're so moody. And I'm right. So I'm trying to navigate how to do that because my 4-year-old, I can do no wrong in her eyes. So that's easy. But my 9-year-old is on that cusp of almost a teenager. And I'm trying to figure out how to give her space while also being involved and showing that I care. So
yeah,
I'm learning.
That's
on this one.
Very difficult. I would say 9 to 13 is probably the most difficult time because they're going from that phase of thinking that you are the greatest thing in the world to wanting to be with their friends and to have their own little lives. And they kind of start to be annoyed by you, which is a new sensation for most parents.
I'm not into it. I'm what did I do? I just walked in here and gave you the apple you asked for. What is the problem?
Yeah.
I know but then you hear from your friends that that have the kids that are the same age. It's normal. But even when you hear that, it doesn't make it feel great,
Yeah.
So how do you take those feelings and not, I know some parents will just not want to engage after that because it hurt for a minute. It hurts, and then you also don't want to feel like you're pestering them, and then that distance kind of starts to form. So I'm I have no clue how to do this. So any insight? Because you've done 9 years old 4 times.
Times over now.
4 times over. So all the different weirdness of the ages. I'm sure you have good insight on how to.
Yeah. So for those of you who haven't been with us since the beginning, to do a recap, my 4 children are adults now. My oldest is 27. And then I have a 25-year-old, a 23-year-old. Well, he'll be 27 on Halloween. He's not 27 yet. I have a 25-year-old, a 23-year-old, and a 19-year-old. So I'm officially done with child rearing, but it never really ends.
Not one more? No, I'm just joking.
And Megan's daughters are, you can tell them,
9 and 4. Yeah. So she just started 4th grade, my 9-year-old, which I heard is just, and we're in a weird part of life right now where we're moving. So she's just extra sensitive and moody. So I'm just, trying to do my best. So we have kids, but they're on different ages. So, you have a really good perspective on where I'm at and how to, go and navigate that, but then also how to navigate having a relationship with adult children, because that's a new that you can't treat them the way that they were when they were 11, you know?
No, and
so
if you want to have that like friendship type relationship with adult children, you do have to transition.
Yes.
And I'm in the midst of transition with my 19-year-old. She still needs me in a lot of ways that, a teenager needs their mom. And so I'm very much still playing the mom role, but we're working on just our dynamics. So that we can be more like I am with the other three, which is they're my kids are my closest friends. I talk to every single one of them every day, and we really do enjoy spending time together and choose to spend time together. And I know that's not everyone's situation. And that makes me sad, because for me, I mean, I don't know where I would be without my kids. Like, I would love to take trips with my kids. We love to, have dinners together. I genuinely want to spend time with them.
You like their company.
Yeah. If they weren't my kids, I would still choose to be friends with them, because they're just cool people. Yeah. So, our first tip, I wrote this article, so I should say my first tip is, just listen. And I think this starts when they are just beginning to talk and babble and all of that. I mean, someone told me once when my boys were toddlers, if you don't listen to the small stuff, they won't come to you with the big stuff. And that really stuck with me. And it's something that I have kept in my mind their whole childhood. So, I mean, every single one of them went through phases where they were like obsessed with something that had very little to no interest to me, like dinosaurs or trucks yeah.
But you have to care.
You have to care, and you have to be enthusiastic, and you have to listen, and not just passively listen while you scroll your phone. You actually have to listen. I was super invested in Disney shows when the kids were at that age, because that's what they were wanting to talk about. So I could talk about the characters from Wizards of Waverly Place, or, what was the nanny Jessie, or whatever they were watching at that time. And now, I mean, my partner has grandchildren, and his oldest granddaughter is 9. She was born just a month away from Emma's birthday. And so she and I will talk about Descendants.
That is so rad.
But ever.
You keep up with like the relevance of what's important to them, because they're not going to talk about what you're going, you know what I mean? Like, you have to have a base level of knowing what they're do.
And it's a big change from past generations when kids were meant to be seen and not heard, and you weren't supposed to interrupt adult talking. And, you just had to go occupy yourself. And then the adults were talking about adult things. And so I really, from the very beginning, tried to include my kids in everyday conversation, and to just listen to them when they wanted to tell me like every single different dinosaur. My son is 25, and I still have long conversations about dinosaurs with him because he cares about that. Or rocks. He studied geology in college, so he wants to tell me all the different kinds of rocks. And I'm like, okay, and I do actually, at some point it does get interesting. And
that is so cool. I did not know this. I had no idea that was a passion. How did I not know this? But, because, for the listeners who do not know, I also nannied for Kelly's children. So I was with them every day for a extensive period of time. And so it's like, I feel like I know a lot about them. So to hear this and me go, wait, what? I'm just like, hold on. But no, you're right. I mean, my kids are really into Roblox right now. This is like a online game, and it's like kind of like Minecraft. I don't know what it is. Sims, whatever. But they're into it. And I care at all. Like I'm whispering because my kids are in the other room, but I don't care at all. But like, I have to care a little, because if I want to talk to them and I want them, I see the excitement on their face when they're telling me about it, especially my 9-year-old. And I know that she's at that age where I'm like, if she's talking to me about anything, I'm going to listen, because that means that she's trusting me, and she sees that's an opportunity for us to bond. So if I'm like scrolling my phone while she's telling me about it, she is noticing the fact that I don't care. And that's going to be a sign for her to go, okay, next time I want to talk about it, I'm not going to talk to her, you know? And then that distance starts to form, and I'm sitting here going, what happened?
I think that's a really big thing, because when they want to share something with you and they're trying to engage on something that's important to them, and you don't seem to be interested, that sends a signal that what's important to them isn't important to you. And that you're not the person to go to. So when it's later in life and there are other things that are really important to them, they may not feel as comfortable coming and sharing that with you.
Yeah.
I mean, my Lord, the twilight years I went through with my daughters.
Oh my gosh. I'm laughing.
Oh my
because I
God.
remember that. Yeah, that was hardcore.
I did
We all
not
had to
care whether it was Edward or Jacob. I did not, but I watched those movies over and over again with them. And we read the books together and we talked about it. And we had philosophical debates over Edward versus Jacob. And,
But you
yeah.
bonded. And when you guys are like 30, you can tell them those stories and they're going to laugh and crack up. And those are moments, you know, it's like, you have to care about the things they care about. You have to care about the small stuff, because if you don't, the big stuff is just, you know, it's not gonna come. And that's a real thing. I'm not big on playing with toys. I'm not. I just don't like. I don't like to play as much. Dan, my husband, is huge on it. And after like the fourth or fifth time of me not being like as engaging or not wanting to say yes, they just don't ask me anymore. Yeah. And it's probably because I was putting some silent cues out there that I was not the person for that type of fun. And then I'm going, why am I not asking to be played with? Well, hello, you're not as fun as him. And he always says yes. Same thing goes with conversation. If you're constantly disregarding whatever they're talking about, they're not going to come to you anymore. And I don't mean to be rude, but you only have yourself to blame, because you didn't give them the time that you would give like your best friend. If your best friend was talking to you about something, you're scrolling your phone, like they would be mad about, understandably upset.
Understandably. Yeah. Kids are very intuitive and they're very naturally empathic.
Yes.
So even if you are sitting down and listening to them talk or playing with them, and they will pick up on the cues that you're not engaged or interested, or you're mildly annoyed by it, they will pick up on that, and they will store that information for the future. I also wanted to touch on my kids. Like I mentioned, my kids would interrupt adult conversation, and my partner and I, when we first started dating, my kids were very small. And we would, be out to lunch or something, and they would interrupt our conversation. And he was like, you need to teach them not to interrupt when the adults are talking. And I was like, absolutely, I will not. Because here's the thing. I don't want my kids to ever think I'm too busy for whatever they have to say to me. So if it's incessant and they're like demanding something of me, that's rude. And we always have respect for other people's experience. That was another thing I taught my kids. But if they want to tell me something or they need something from me, they're allowed to interrupt me no matter what I'm doing in the whole world. And that stands for today. I tell them all the time, if you need me, call me. I don't care where I am in the world. I will get on a plane. I will take a rowboat. I will hitchhike, whatever I got to do. I'll get to you. So they know that they don't have to think, oh, I don't want to bother her. Oh, she's too busy. Oh, I don't want to be a burden. They never feel that way, because from the very beginning, they were allowed to come in my room and, ask me for something. Even if I was busy, they were allowed to interrupt me to a limit. Obviously, we respect other people's experience. So I would tell them ahead of time, I'm going to do this thing. So you need to give mommy this amount of time, because this is a business thing, or she's having, time with her friend or whatever it is. So they knew that I carved that time out. But other than that, I mean, they could come to me anytime. They never were made to feel like they were bothering me.
That's good. That's good. My kids bother me for the silliest things. I don't know if I just had that rule. Oh, God, I'm just thinking of like all the times I've gone in for just like more ice water. And I'm just like, girl,
yes.
No, I'm trying to do work, I
remember many times where this exact rule backfired on me horribly, because I would be at the end of a long day trying to have a bubble bath or something, after I had to remove all the decapitated Barbie heads and the bath crayons and all their junk out of the bathtub, finally get it cleaned out, take my bubble bath. And then the little toddler fingers come under the bathroom door. Mama. And I'm like, yes, honey, what is it? Brother's breathing my air. Okay. Well, you're not going to suffocate, because the house has lots of air. So give mommy a little time.
I would be like, my kids would, that's ridiculous. They come up multiple times, but you made a very good point. If your kids understand to respect other people's experience, like my kids have a really hard time understanding that at the end of the day, that's mom and dad's time for each other, just to hang out, adult talk, whatever. And they get up 5-6 times because they're breathing the same air kind of.
Yes.
And so they, for a while, really didn't understand the fact that they were really dampening our experience as adults. And that was our only time together. And so once they started to understand that, but they knew if it was a true emergency, of course, they could always come in, if something hurts, if something was going on. I never wanted them to feel like, oh, if we got up, we would get in big trouble, but there is a line of just utter ridiculousness.
Yeah, no, for sure. For sure. You have to have boundaries. You do.
Yeah, good.
For sure.
We're on the same page with that one because
yeah. Otherwise they will. They'll need sticks of cheese and glasses of water. Ridiculous. And a million times a day.
When does the shift of like the adult, is it an age thing or is it a gut thing when you start to notice that you need to shift your relationship with your kids to a more adult form? Like with your youngest, she's 19. Was that like she just started to act a certain way, or she hit a certain age and you realized that relationship needed to shift? Is it like an age thing or a person?
It's an age thing. It's also a life experience thing. So she went away to college last year for her first year away from us. And she went all the way from California to Alabama. That's a very far distance. Mm-hmm. In that time, she had to figure out, how to do her own laundry in a laundromat type facility. She had to learn how to live with roommates who had totally different personalities than she did. So conflict resolution, right? She got COVID and was extremely, extremely sick.
She grew up fast.
She had to, and I couldn't be there. So she had to advocate for herself and her physical needs with the hospital staff people. And usually I speak for her at doctor's appointments. She has a lot of health issues. So I usually run down her health history, allergy, all that stuff with doctors, but she had to speak for herself. So I was there, but I was over the phone, talking to her, telling her, you can do this. Like, I'll be right here. If you have any questions, if you don't remember something, ask me. But she had to speak up for herself. And a lot of times when she'd call me and say, my roommate's being this way with me, and I don't know if I, live with her, whatever, I would tell her, there's going to be a lot of times in your life when you have partners, roommates, even like in-laws, people that you work with, that your personalities don't go well together. But you have to figure out a way to respect that person's space and have them respect yours and figure out how to resolve issues. She had a roommate that wasn't doing, like, letting all the other roommates do all the cleaning and just leaving her dishes out. And my daughter's a very clean person and it bothered her. And so she would just end up doing it. And I told her, if that's fine, if it doesn't bother you to do it, do it. But if you're doing it and building resentment about doing it, you're going to explode at some point. So you need to sit her down and say, hey, I don't know if you've noticed, but I've been cleaning up your dishes. It might not bother you to have them sit in the sink overnight. It bothers me. That's why I've been doing it. And have a conversation about it. She may not even realize that it's a problem for you. So she had to grow up a lot in that year. And now she's back home and she's, comfortable back in her space with me doing things for her. But I do think that the distance
but she has a skill set, though. If she needed to go back to that skill set, she has that skill set to be able to be independent.
I do think one of the greatest things about going away to college or going away to the military or moving away from home on any kind of volunteer mission or whatever it is that you're forced to figure things out for yourself because of the distance. Mm-hmm. You can ask over the phone, but maybe I didn't pick up because I was on the other line. Maybe I'm not there.
You'd have to Google it or something. You know what I mean? Like you'd have to get crafty. You're very true about that. You become much more capable over that. Usually it's 4 years you're away at school. You become much more capable over those 4 years. My 23-year-old is getting ready to graduate. And I cannot tell you, she's a completely different person than she was when she moved away. I want to be like her when I grow up. You know what I mean? Like she is very mature for her age. But to be fair, she's always been a little like she's had it together forever. Yeah. But really though, I mean, you're right. Moving away from your, like, so far away that it's not drivable for you to go bail her out because a plumbing issue is happening. Like, to move away just causes you to grow up,
Yeah. I mean, I'm not going to come and squish a spider in your bedroom because I live a 6-hour flight away.
It's so true. So you have to buck up and do it yourself. And that's very true. I did not move away from college, and, I rely on too much from people because, and I probably would mature a lot faster if I did. So I guess it has life experience. But I was just curious if okay, now she's out of high school. So now we shift that relationship, because some people, they don't move away.
Right.
So maybe they're not as far advanced in life as like their other peers are. And so parents tend to treat them younger than they actually are. So that could also hurt their relationship as well, because they're not seeing them as adults, even though they are adults. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's hard to see your adult children who are still not making those life choices that you wish they did, or they're not moving as quickly in life as you wish they would. You know, it's hard to still treat them like adults, but they are adults, because that can also damper a relationship, an adult relationship too, if you don't treat them like adults, despite whatever they're doing in life, you know?
Yeah. And sometimes you have to let them make mistakes and learn from their mistakes. When I first moved out on my own, I didn't go away to college either, but I did move away.
Mhm.
And I was loading the dishwasher for the very first time in my life, and I put dish soap in it because it said dish soap.
Oh,
like
I've done that.
Liquid detergent. My whole apartment filled with bubbles.
Yeah.
And I realized, like, wow, I'm not a capable adult. Like, I need to figure my stuff out.
Yeah.
So those kind of mistakes, I mean, it's not going to have long-term damage. Let them make some small mistakes, and they will figure things out on their own. They will have no choice but to do so. So that helps a lot. And since you're removed from the situation by distance, they have to figure things out on their own. And it's not like, you could have helped me, Mom, but you didn't. And it's like, no, actually, I'm
because you're not 11
away.
anymore, and I shouldn't, you know, that's a serious struggle. I personally struggle with that sometimes with my, you know, I do need help from my dad sometimes, but I also do want him to see me like a 30 something year old. It's like, well, which one do you want? You know, and I see the dynamic between my brother and my dad, and I'm like, it seems to me sometimes it's like he's being treated like he's 11, or, you know, it's just that dynamic can be funny sometimes when you're an adult and you have a relationship with your parent that's not always so solid, you know, because it's been a weird couple of years. Some adult children have moved back in with their their parents, and now they're trying to figure out what their dynamic is, because they haven't had a dynamic since they were kids or something like that, you know. So it is a good thing to explore how to have a healthy relationship with your child, no matter the age. But I do firmly believe it starts if you start doing certain small practices young, like the ones we discuss, and the ones you listed, then those will help you in the long run, because that there's such a line of respect with you and your children. And correct me if I'm wrong, but it seems like they know that you respect them, so they don't ever have to. I mean, I'm sure every relationship has its like ups and downs and craziness, but you guys maintain a good friendship because you respect them. You know, I think the base respect issue is big, you know, and that starts young.
I think that ties into what number 2 in the article, which was when you listen, don't react. Because obviously, like, that doesn't apply to like toddlers and young children as much. It applies more when they're teenagers and coming to you with stuff. My kids tell me everything. I actually think they tell me too much. They overshare with me. There's some things I don't want to know that I know.
You're like, oh, okay.
But
that's good. I don't know. I feel like overshare is kind of goals for parents, because we always want to be over involved in our children's lives, even if we don't want to admit it. You know,
I appreciate it. I don't have to wonder what's going on. And I feel like they trust to confide in me. So I really love that. But when they were middle school and high school, there were a lot of instances, I mean, almost with every single one of, actually, yes, with every single one of them, where they made a huge mistake. And like being expelled from school mistake, getting a call from the cops mistake, like big mistakes. And the thing is, they didn't try to hide it from me, because they knew if they told me right away, I'm a problem solver by my nature, and I'm not an overly emotional person, that helps. I understand not everyone is that way. But when they would call me, or I would get a call from the school, or the cops have called me before saying, I have your child here, I immediately switch into problem solving mode. What do I need to do? How can we get this resolved? What's the next step? So, okay, your child just is getting expelled from school. Instead of reacting, oh my God, how could you do this? What are we going to do now? Like, you knew better, you were warned, blah, blah, blah. That's not productive. That's how I think. It's not productive. He knows he screwed up. This is not news to him. He's getting expelled. Like, he knows that's a really big screw up. For me to yell and scream right now, that will not solve this problem at all. And my response was also not to like try to save them from their own actions. not to go to the school and say, well, hey, will you reconsider? No, he got consequences. He did something he was told not to do. And these are the consequences. I don't believe in special treatment just because I can be persuasive, right? So the problem solving comes in. Okay, where can he go to school now? He needs to complete his education. Honey, what are your options? These are your 3 options. Which one do you think is better? We talk through it calmly, no reaction, because he knows he screwed up. Later, when everyone is calm and we've found a solution, then we have the conversation of, okay, look at what happened because of what you did. And you had all these other choices you could have made. So what would you do differently back in that situation now? Would you make the same choice? Would you make a different choice? Those are the longer, deeper conversations we would have once all the dust had settled and everybody was calm and we could talk about how things got to the point that they got.
So for me, who is a naturally emotionally reactive person and who thinks of you as like, oh my gosh, that's incredible. Is there any advice to someone who isn't naturally like that? How do you, because your natural reaction, especially with some of the things you might be bringing up, is to just rage, embarrassment, disappointment. It's like natural human emotion kind of takes over like that, and caveman brain almost, and you don't you're right, because that will just like, that makes it worse. Right. And we all kind of know if we raised our child right in our eyes, they know they were wrong, but our natural reaction is to lash out. So do you have any advice for anyone whose natural reaction is to first lash out and then problem solve rather than problem solve and then have a calm talk about it? Because it's never good to lash.
Well, first of all, I think it helps if you believe that your children are by nature good people. You have to believe that your kid has good intentions in general, is a good person in general, and made a mistake. Mm-hmm. That's a different reaction than how you would react to a person who is malicious in their behavior, right? Mm-hmm. Kids make mistakes. It's part of growing up. It's better to make these mistakes before you're 18, where the consequences are still solvable, than to make the mistakes after you're 18, where you have adult consequences. So I know there's wiggle room for kids to make mistakes. They need to, in order to figure out right and wrong, to learn consequences, to have accountability. Some level of mistakes are kind of important to have in your teenage years. I made a ton.
Yeah, we're not perfect people.
Right. If you live some kind of
have perfect people, but we are not perfect.
And I can tell you this from 4 kids worth of experience, all their friends, all the people they knew and went to high school with, the kids who didn't make any mistakes and were like the charmed, perfect, children all the way through. When they got to college, they went absolutely insane.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Absolutely insane. Some of them died. I mean, a lot of my kids have lost friends to things like overdoses, car accidents involving alcohol.
Let out of the cage.
They held back. They didn't make any minor mistakes. And then they had a huge traumatic mistake, because it only takes a second to make a decision that changes your entire course of your life. So when you're younger and those mistakes that you're making have less serious consequences, it's a learning experience. And it's something, when bad things happened to my kids when they were younger, whether it was their own decision-making or an external, I'm on a Zoom call.
I'm sorry.
It's okay. Hi. Sorry.
Okay.
We'll edit that out.
I never know if it's mine or you.
No, it's mine.
Just headphones.
We would always have a conversation about like, what was your percentage of responsibility in this situation? What could you have done differently to give yourself a better outcome? And even if if something bad happened to them that didn't feel like they had responsibility for it, like their car got hit or they got mugged or something, that feels external. Maybe there was something they could have done to be in less dangerous circumstances.
Learning situation.
Or to be more aware of their environment or something like that. And we would also talk about how every decision that you make either gives you more choices in your life or narrows your choices. So if you're making a series of bad decisions, your choices for your future are going to get less and less and less until you really don't have very many at all. So, that's a conversation that you can only really effectively have if your child makes mistakes. If they don't make mistakes, then it's all theory and they're not really going to grasp it in relation to them. If that if that makes any sense.
I love that. All for not, we're not encouraging to make mistakes, but we as parents just think that they have to just be so but you're right. Like if they're so perfect, that just makes, they need those moments of small mistakes to learn, so that when they're older, it doesn't turn into a massive traumatic one, or a big one that's maybe not traumatic, but a big one, because they have no experience. You never let them fall. You are always like, I got you,
Right. Or if they've made mistakes, your response was to save them from it.
True.
And that's the wrong response, because they do need consequences. I have had those experiences where I got calls and I had to respond to, like the cops called me and one of my kids was being held at the police station, and it was a very serious issue. And I was very emotional and I was very angry and disappointed and all the things you can imagine. But then I saw my child and they were in tears running down their face. I could tell that there was nothing I could say to them at that moment. They weren't saying to themselves probably 100 times worse.
Yes. Such a great insight too to have, because
I know they're a good
kid.
Themselves
up too. And yet you're still going to want to try and, I mean, my mom never got that insight. And it's like, I was already beating myself up before she got to that point. And then I just got re-edified and I was like, well, cool. Let me confide in you. No.
Yeah. Or sometimes they genuinely didn't know how it felt for me when they were making, like they would say they snuck out and I would catch them coming back. And I would say, you know what, I'm really upset. So we'll talk about this in the morning. And then in the morning, I would explain to them, once I'm calmer, when I don't know where you are, or I can't get a hold of you, or you're not where I thought you were going to be, my mom brain goes to the worst case scenario. I imagine you've been abducted. You're laying in a ditch somewhere, like someone's doing something terrible to you. And I love you so much that like, that's my worst nightmare. So don't create these scenarios in my imagination where it's like a Law and Order episode.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. That's so accurate.
Because I'm not sitting there thinking,
oh,
she's so selfish. She missed curfew. She snuck out. How could she? I'm thinking she's with a serial killer for sure.
And they're looking at you like you're an actual crazy person, but wait till you have a kid and wait till it's not even in your control, because you, like you said, watch one episode of Law and Order and be a parent. And that's what is happening. Okay. Yeah. It's not, but it is.
But sometimes when you are a little bit emotional and you're explaining how you process behavior that they did, they'll see it differently, because they don't always know that they're like, my mom's a hard ass. My mom's this. They don't think it's coming from necessarily a place of genuine concern, and that you've seen that humans can do the worst possible things to each other. And you're just trying to protect them from that. Yeah. So, I mean, it helps if both sides think that they each have good intentions.
That's true. Because you got to hold back that rage and go into, how can we fix this? And then let's calmly talk about it, because it just doesn't get anywhere. Respect.
Yes. Mutual respect. Exactly. So I think also an important thing from the time they're little is, this is probably the biggest mistake that I see that parents make, is you should have zero expectations. Not necessarily zero. Like, I think I always hoped and believed and tried very hard to make sure that my children were going to be productive and good citizens of the world and nice human beings. But beyond that, I didn't have the mindset that I see a lot of parents have, where they tell their kids from the time they're like Kenzie's age, oh, you're going to be a doctor just like your dad, or you're going to be a lawyer just like your mom, or you're going to go to USC because we both went to USC. Whatever it is, or, oh, I can't wait till you have a big Catholic wedding in our church.
Oh my gosh. Or I can't wait until you have kids, or it's like, just to have zero, you're right. Have zero expectations on their life, because then it gives them the freedom to choose their life.
Well, and honestly, for me as a parent, one of the best things about being a parent to me, and one of the most exciting things, was to watch this little tiny, bean pod of a human turn into like the most amazing person. And it's like, you have no idea what they're going to be. It's like, do you remember those toys you would buy in the 25-cent machine? It looked like a pill, but when you put it in water, it would turn into a creature, and you didn't know what you were getting.
Clue where you're,
it's like that.
Parenting.
Yeah. And you don't know if they're going to be artistic, or they're going to be kind of bookish, or they're going to be
they're
really
into
athletic,
school, or they like to sleep in, or like and you embrace whatever beautiful form that comes in. It might not be what you are. It might not be what you thought you were going to have when you were a kid. You're like, oh, I'm going to have what that, and believe me, they pick up on that if you share
if you say things if you say things to them like, you're going to play football just like your dad, or you're going to be a dancer like your mom, or you have the great perfect piano playing fingers just like
you're
your grandma,
so fast, you're going to be a great track player, like
they want to please you so much that they will try to conform into that expectation of them, instead of letting them figure out what they genuinely are passionate about and love. And so I see mostly that comes from parents who maybe didn't have the experience that they wanted to have. Like maybe they never got the big wedding.
That's probably what's instilled in them as kids, is they had to do that, or that's just all we know.
Right. Maybe you didn't go to college, so it's really important that your kids go to a great college. Or maybe you never had the big fancy wedding, so that you talk about it, what you're going to do for your kids' big fancy wedding, or whatever it is. But you have to let them figure it out for themselves, because they will turn out to be, if you let them be who they're meant to be, they will turn out to be absolutely amazing.
Yeah. And if we want to go another layer past, it's like, oh, I can't wait for you to have kids. Well, what if they don't want to have kids? I can't wait for you to get married. Well, what if they're trying to figure out what gender they identify as at that moment? And you're like a traditional household, and then all of a sudden you're putting up a barrier you didn't even know. You just go in, letting them be the perfect being that they are. And as long as it's not harming anyone, physically, then that's perfect as it is,
But how many times have you seen, especially older people, with a little boy who's maybe 2, telling him, oh, what a handsome boy. He's going to be a ladies' man. Look at him. Like,
all the time.
Oh, that little boy smiled at me. Such a flirt. He's going to be a real ladies' man. Maybe not. Maybe he's not going to be a man at all. Maybe he's going to like boys. Like, we don't know. Yeah. So that's an expectation we're putting on them. Or, we've talked about this a lot, but telling little girls that they're pretty, instead of like, they're smart, they're a good friend, they're amazingly capable.
Yes.
Yeah.
When you're because it's very great. I love telling my 4-year-old how cute she is, because I'm sorry, she's really cute. But it's easy. That's an easy thing for me to say. When I talk to my 9-year-old, she's super cute too, but I talk about how kind she is, about how funny she is, about how she can tell, how she can do something that she's really proud of in gymnastics. I bring that up to build her confidence up in areas that I feel are the most important. I never ever, unless she's got a new outfit and she just needs a confident boost, I never focus on looks, because I feel like that's just putting focus on the wrong things,
Yeah. One thing we didn't touch on with the listen and don't react, I meant to say this. As my kids have grown into adults, I'm still a problem solver. It's my nature. I want to jump in and fix everything for them all the time. I want to make their lives as easy as they can be. I would love to be able to make all their decisions for them, but that's not healthy.
Oh, I've said it once. I'll say it 45 more times. Adopt me, because I need a person who's just I just want to make things right.
I just want to fix everything. But sometimes when they call me and they have a problem, they don't actually want me to fix it for them. Sometimes they just want to vent to someone that's safe for them to vent to. So as they've gotten older, I have learned to ask them, hey, are you just venting, or do you need help? And or do you need advice? And they'll tell me I'm just venting. So it's been, this is probably the biggest challenge. It's been really hard for me as my kids have gotten older, but now, they're in their 20s, they're full adults. Unless they ask me for my advice, I do not give it, because they know I'm there. They know I have a wealth of knowledge about a lot of things. If they want to know my opinion, they'll ask for it, and I will happily share it, and I'll guide them, and I'll do all the things. But if they are trying to figure out something on their own, then my only job is to tell them they're capable of figuring it out and be a cheerleader. And I will tell them, you've been through worse things than this, and you handled it totally great. Or I know you're going to figure this out. You're so smart. I know the answer in my own head. I know exactly what to tell them to do. But if they are looking to just vent, that's all I say. I say,
that's good.
Got this. It's so hard.
It takes the pressure off of you, and it takes the pressure off of them, because I don't get asked that from my parent. And sometimes he'll think I'm calling for advice, and he's saying all the wrong things. Or I will be calling for advice and he'll just be like, and I'll be like, so he never starts the conversation with, are you asking for advice? Or are you just venting? Sometimes I'll be like, Dad, I'm just venting. Just hear me out. I'm about to like just word vomit at you. Like I'll give him a heads up. But sometimes it does feel like there's a wall, because if you give the wrong advice when advice isn't warranted or wanted or needed, and they're just coming for someone that they can just trust, then it can really get the conversation going in a direction that it didn't need to go if you had known that, because if you give the wrong advice, the natural reaction in that emotional state as your child is to kind of get defensive or to now talk about that. I've seen a lot of bad conversations with my brother and my dad because my brother was just venting and my dad felt the need to give advice when it wasn't needed. Sometimes my brother's an adult,
Sometimes too, they already know what they want to do and they're just like trying to give themselves permission to do that. So if you jump in and you give them advice that's the opposite of that, they're going to be really defensive and angry. And sometimes they already kind of know the answer, and all you need to do is just ask them a few little leading questions and they'll get there on their own. And then they've built the confidence that they solved their own problem. They came to the solution themselves. And that is how they grow as people and build adult level confidence, is by having if you do everything, fix every problem for them, answer every solution for them, they won't have that kind of confidence.
And this seems super complex, but if you really pay attention to certain cues in the beginning, then the reward for you is that when they are having some sort of emotional moment, they are coming to you versus coming to their best friend, their boyfriend, their husband. Like they have a feeling of trust in you. And that's the gift right there, because you know that you don't have to worry about, you have their location on, we've talked about this. That if there was a real problem, they would come to you because you've put in the time, the energy, the love, the effort to build that relationship to a point where they know that they can count on you for that. This type of relationship is a lifelong one. And if you don't work on certain things, it can be a very up and down roller coaster style one. It can cause children and parents to not speak for moments in their life. And what's the point in that? So it may seem complex. It may seem silly, some of the things, but at the same time, this is a long-term, lifelong, hopefully, relationship you have with this individual or multiple individuals, your children or your parents, that you want it to be as healthy as possible. Because if not, so many moments have happened where you regret, right? You don't want to have a moment where you're not speaking to your child in a time where they needed you most, or something bad happens. Like, it's not worth it. So work on this relationship above all, because it's the most important one to have,
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I think our jobs as parents, it's the most important thing we'll ever do. We're really like creating a legacy for generations to come, and how we parent and how we fix our own shit that we have from our parents, so that we don't hand that down to our kids. There's a lot of generational trauma, and we are responsible for not saying, oh, well, yeah, I'm screwing up, but I'm doing better than my parents did. Like, that's not good enough. Like, you need to be the absolute best that you can be for them. They didn't ask to, come into this family and this situation. So right. You really, you have to put them first. You always have to put them first. I think when parents who are expecting their first child, I get this a lot. They ask me, oh, well, give me a piece of advice. Like, that's my only advice. Like, put your kids first. Like, every decision that you make, prioritize your children. They only live with, they're only children for 18 years. That's not the majority of your life. That's a slice of your life, right? If you live to be 80, that's only not even 25%.
Yes, like the days are long, but the
not even 25% of your life.
Yeah.
Like, you can do whatever you want after they're adults with whomever you want. But while they're small and living in your home, they need to be the priority. They need to. And I think that for everyone on this planet, if you have one person who prioritizes you and that you are the most important thing to them, that's such a safety net underneath you when you're walking like this tightrope of life that's really shitty half the time. Like, just knowing you have that safety net, that there's somebody out there who's in your corner no matter what, who you can call no matter what. It's like your person. And they don't have to be a parent. Like, mine was my grandmother. That's that's all that everyone just needs, that one person. It can change everything for someone. Yeah.
We're also giving them like very good tips on how to handle their bosses, management. I mean, if you have a really dysfunctional relationship with your parent, you know, your adult person, then they're going to have probably a hard time understanding how to have like a dynamic with, we're teaching them lessons on how to be good people in life and how to respect people, how to have difficult conversations, how to, you know, respect boundaries. You know, I'm now learning that I shouldn't just walk in the room. I should knock because she's 9 and, you know, she deserves boundaries. You know, you have to evolve with them and respect their boundaries and do all that stuff. But you also have to understand that we're teaching them little cues on how to just be good people, you know?
And I mean, the new generation that is like your generation, my kids' generation, and the generations that are coming, they do not have this older generation idea that having a relationship with your parents is automatic and it's earned and you have to. They don't have to. They know that. Yeah. There is no rule that we owe our parents a relationship. If this new dynamic that's out in the world now, I mean, if you don't build that respect level and communication when they're younger, they will just choose not to have a relationship with you because
it's not a given because you gave birth to them. Unfortunately, it should
be. I mean, back in the 1950s, that's how it was. Like you've dealt with your parents, even if they were physically abusive, even if they had addiction issues, even if they abandoned you, like they were still your parents and you automatic respect and ma'am and sir and all that. It's not a thing of the past. Like our kids don't owe us a relationship. So
it's because I have kids and I have changed that perspective, that mindset. And now I'm raising my kids to think that way. We've just shifted. And now there's this total shift. So we have to be aware of that.
Right. And if you're putting your kids first, then you wouldn't want them to have a relationship with someone who was toxic for them. And you don't want to be that toxic person for them. So, okay. The last tip is to meet them where they're at. And this is more as they get to be teenagers and adults. So we have a tendency as adult humans to want younger people to kind of to make us feel comfortable, to like reframe the environment for us so that we're happy and comfortable. But if you want to get to know your kid, especially when they're an adult, you have to meet them where they're at. And that could be small things. Like if your kid hates talking on the phone, don't make them call you. Don't say, oh, call me once a week. And they don't like talking on the phone. They can text you, they can FaceTime you, they can Snapchat, there's a million ways to communicate. Meet them on their level. And if they're a super busy person and you're constantly trying to get in touch during the day and they're working like 70-hour weeks.
Guilt them because, you know, they were too busy, like meet them.
You don't have time to call your mother, you know?
You hear that probably more times than not. And it's like, actually, I don't. I don't even have time to talk to my own kids, let alone.
But the last thing in the world that I want is for my kids to think, ugh, I got to call my mom.
Oh,
I don't want to be a chore.
No.
I don't want to be on your to-do list. I want you to be like, oh, I have 10 minutes. I'll call my mom. Like, that's great. That's what I want.
It might suck, by the way, to give in a little because you feel as parents like you are entitled to whatever you want when it comes to your children. And I might be wrong. I'm only a seasoned parent of 9 years, but I feel like that doesn't change. Like, because sometimes I talk to my dad and there's this sense of entitlement, like I owe him because I'm his child. And I'm like, wait a minute, you know? So yeah, you know, they don't owe it to you.
They don't owe it to you. Or if you go visit them in the town where they live, don't make comments about how they live. Don't criticize anything that they're sharing with. They're choosing to share their space with you. They're choosing to share a piece of their life with you. Instead of having any kind of judgment, I mean, have interest. Ask them, where do you guys like to go out to eat? Like, take me there. Don't make them take you to a restaurant you would have chosen. The point is to get to see a glimpse of their life, not to have them accommodate you. So go there and stay in their house if they're comfortable with that, and ask them to take you to their favorite places and ask them to introduce me to some of your friends, like share part of your life with me. I want to get to know you better. And there's going to be times where this is uncomfortable for you. And there's going to be times where they share things with you that you may not be ready to hear, or that may not fit the version of them that you had in your head, because the people change as they become adults. They may share things with you that you don't understand at all. Like, I have 0 tattoos on my body, not a single one, never have been even thinking of getting one. I don't have an issue with it. It's just not for me. My son is a tattoo artist. He has tattoos over his entire body. And the tattooing world is not something I ever knew anything about. But I think he's an incredibly talented artist. He knows I don't have tattoos. So he'll if he thinks of a design for me, he'll paint it for me. But he does share like the meanings behind the tattoos he's gotten, interesting tattoos he's seen recently. Tattoos are not my thing, but he shares it with me because I know it's important. He knows it's important to him. And because it's important to him, it's important to me. So that's a good example. Or if they introduce you to friends who you think, are strange or different, or if they share something about their life that is opposite of your lifestyle and values, and you don't know how to react, first of all, again, listen and don't react. That was tip number 2. But it's okay to just say, hey, this is new for me. I don't completely understand it, but I really want to thank you for sharing it with me. Like, that's all they want to hear. They just want to hear, I'm interested in your life. Thank you for sharing it with me. Like, it's not that hard.
Well, think about it. The best friendships, adult friendships, come when two people just fully accept the other person for who they are and love on that person. No best friend is sitting there trying to cater to that other friend. Oh, well, they like this. So we like, those friendships are dysfunctional and they don't last a long time. So if you want a long lasting friendship, I'm sorry, I'm going to call it a friendship. And it's weird for parents to hear that because they're like, they're my kid. We shouldn't be. No, at some point you are on a very same level of person where of course you're always their parent. Of course you're always going to probably know what's best for them, but you don't need to rub it in their face when they're in their 40s. You want a friendship with them. You want an adult style interacting friendship with them. So if you treat them in a way where they feel like they have to completely cater to you because you're just that kind of parent, it's not going to be the type of relationship you wanted. No. You'll have one, but it'll be forced. It'll feel like because they feel like they have to, and that's never what we ever want as a parent. We want to be involved, and if they want us to be involved.
Yeah. And if you don't react with enthusiasm and an open mind for whatever they're choosing to share with you, then the version of your kid that you're going to get at holidays is not even the real them. You're never going to even know.
Pretend to be someone for you.
You're
and
never
they're rolling their eyes
know.
As they're walking up to the door. Like they don't want to be there.
How many holiday movies have we seen where the basis for the movie was, I'm going to bring you to my family holiday. You pretend like you're my girlfriend because I can't tell them I'm gay, or we're going to go and I'm going to pretend that don't tell them I changed careers 2 years ago. They still think I'm a doctor or whatever. It's a holiday movie trope, right?
It's a movie, but it's also a lot of people's real actual life, because they're afraid to be who they are on their parents or their whatever.
Our parents, our home, as far as like our nuclear family home, is supposed to be the safe space for your kids. It's supposed to be the place where they can explore who they are and be who they actually are and share that with you. And it's not supposed to be a place where they don't feel accepted. I mean, this is their home. You're their parent. Like, it's hard. I get it. Because sometimes it's totally not what you were expecting, but it's important because it's the only way to have a meaningful relationship with them for the rest of your life.
Yeah. It's a lot of letting go of a lot of expectations and a lot of accepting and just being, because I mean, like you said, you never thought that you were going to be the mom of a tattoo artist. And yet here you are. And yet you guys probably have, and I say probably because I don't know the ins and outs, but you have a really great relationship. And he's probably not afraid to talk all about what he does.
He is. Yeah. He sends me pictures of the tattoos he's doing. And I say, oh my gosh, babe, your line work is getting so good. I mean, years ago, I didn't know what line work was.
about your comments. If you're like, cool stuff, he'd be like, it's just mom being supportive. Like, he really thinks you're interested. And whether you are or not, that doesn't matter. They think you're interested. And he's an adult. Like, my 4-year-old, I don't have to convince her very much that I'm interested in her stuff. All I have to do is just sound enthusiastic a little bit. Mm-hmm. But if I were to sound like that to my 9-year-old, she'd be like, bullshit. She'd be like, you don't give a what about what I'm talking about. Worse for my 4-year-old, though, barely have to try. So the older you get, the harder that is to keep that connection of they think what I'm doing is great versus they're just being that supportive parent role, which we all just naturally think our parents love everything we do, just like not maybe everything we do, but they're not gonna be, well, my parents weren't super critical, but it never felt like if I talk about Disney to my dad, there's no genuine questions coming back. Or if I try and tell him about a new thing at Disneyland, he'll be like, but it's never like a deep conversation. I know it, so at that point I'm just talking to me, which is fine, but I would like a deeper connection, because then it makes me feel like the person actually cares about what I'm saying, and that adds a whole new layer to the relationship. I don't fault him for it. It's not his thing, but maybe had he had listened a little bit to what I was saying, he could pick up on a few things he was saying. Like you said, lines, like it sounded like you knew what you were talking about there for a second, right?
Yeah, because I've been paying attention. I've been asking you questions. Like, how do you get better at that? Like, what is your boss saying about that?
Questions are kind of great, because then you further know more about it, and then they feel like they're not just listening like a mom, they're actually listening to the words I'm saying.
Right. And when I ask questions like related to it and I show genuine interest, then I can ask him questions about other parts of his life and he doesn't feel like I'm prying.
Yeah.
Because he knows I'm just interested in his life. Yeah. I'm not asking him questions because I'm nosy or prying or being a nag or any of that.
It's a delicate thing, but we all kind of know how to have what we would like to have a great friendship with someone as an adult. Treat it kind of like that, unless and I mean, when my child is 9, I'm still going to be doing a little bit more than just the friendship level, but I am starting to convert now, like I said, to knocking on the doors, or when she talks about something, instead of doing the like I do with my 4-year-old sometimes, I'm sorry, I'll admit it, but sometimes it's nonstop nonsense. But when she talks about something that happened in school, I'll try and really listen to what she's saying and ask follow-up questions, because then that tells her I'm listening. And then that builds a form of a connection where she'll just naturally start to tell me about what happened at school without me having to ask.
Right.
That's my goal, is like for her to get in the car and just start talking about what happened at school, rather than me being like, what happened at school today?
And once you open that door where on the ride home from school, your child says, Emily's not friends with Katie anymore because Emily said Katie called her this name. And then, this is not your drama. These are not your friend group. But a few days later, you can say, hey, whatever happened with Emily and Katie, did they work it out? And they know, hey, they were listening to me and they care about what I said, because they even remembered to ask me about it again later. Yeah. So it's little things like that show the same way you would a friend. Yeah. The same way you would a friend. If a friend came and told you that they were struggling with something, a few days later, you would follow up and you would say, how's everything going? Like, is it getting better? Yeah. We just have to lay that friendship groundwork when they're young and keep it.
These are the little things that when the big moments come, they will come to you. The little things are these moments, the after school car rides home,
Right. Yeah.
The follow-up questions show that you actually care. They'll be so shocked. They'll be like, what? Because they know as a mom, you got 50 things going on. Why would you remember about that drama between Emily and, so-and-so? But if you do, that's showing them that they really are, they know they're a priority, but they really want to know that they're a priority. They want to see it through your actions, through your words. No, it's so easy to naturally assume that, like, oh, a mother and a child, that bond, like a mom will do anything for their kid. But it's another step of actually like really knowing your kid and being there for them and bonding with them, rather than just relying on you're my kid, so you'll naturally love me thing,
Yeah. Yeah. And I think all of these tips, if you follow them as best you can, I know they're not all easy, will create the kind of relationship that we all want to have with our kids when they're adults. And will also create an environment of respect where your kids will have that respect with each other as well, as siblings, because that's the model in the house. And that's important, because you're not going to be here forever and your kids have each other. And that's, such an important relationship as you get older. I know, my grandmother has passed, and my sister and I got closer and closer through that. And I think we're going to be a great support system for each other as we get into our old age. And I hope that for my kids. And, but I think it helps to have a home environment that's based on communication and respect and all of that. So
I totally agree.
Yeah.
Easier said than done. But if you apply some of these tips and just apply them, like, repetitively, it will get better. It's never perfect. I'm sure that you guys aren't perfect all the time, but it certainly helps with the overall long-term goal of having a relationship that's healthy.
Yeah, exactly. And if your kids are already middle school, high schoolers, it is definitely not too late to implement any of these tips and get involved with the things that are important to them. I'm sure they have a favorite TV show they're watching. Maybe they're watching something for the 20th time. Yeah. Gabby's watching
you down the line somewhere that you can start the conversation and you can make the change anytime.
Yeah.
You know, even if they're adult children, you can still try and find ways to reach out and build that relationship that's still going to be great and lifelong.
Yeah, exactly. So this is a great topic. This is an important topic for me. Hopefully it helps some people out there who are struggling with this. And we always appreciate you guys for showing up each week and listening to us. It is definitely something that is very important to us. We hope we're bringing you valuable content. So if you are enjoying the show, as always, subscribe, like, rate, review, all the things, you're supposed to do. And we always have the discussion board. If you guys want to just talk about it further, it's on Facebook. You can search She's a Full-On Monet. We have a Facebook page and an attached discussion board. And thank you guys for joining us every week. We just love to see you guys coming back.
Yep. Well, have a good one.
Bye. We'll see you next week.
Thanks so much for listening to this week's episode. Don't forget to bookmark our site, she'safullonmonet.com, and subscribe to our newsletter. You can also find us on Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube. If you're enjoying this podcast, it helps us a lot if you can follow, rate, and review. See y'all next week.